Yeah, this your boy Rich Notch.
Yo, I'm Brock Landis.
And this is Chop It Up Hip Hop. And today we got a special guest in the building from Rockaway, Bobby J from Rockaway.
Yes, sir.
In the building, know what I mean? Thanks for coming through.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
Pleasure.
So, yeah, you've been doing this for a minute, repping Rockaway Beach and everything.
Yeah, a long time, man. It's been like, I started when I was around like 10 years old, pursuing it professionally since I'm like 13 or 14, so it's definitely something I've been rapping longer than I haven't been rapping at this point. So it's something I've been doing for a long time.
That's what's up.
That's what's up.
And now you got the buzz going.
Trying, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the buzz is out there, definitely. I'm gonna start by asking the question that we ask most of our new artists, and like, what made you start rapping? Like, what made you pursue the music thing?
I mean, like, I always tell people, there was always music being played around me from, my parents and my brother. Mm-hmm. My mom was like heavy into classic rock. My dad, who was from Detroit, he was into classic rock, but he also played a lot of Motown, a lot of funk, soul, more eclectic stuff like new wave music. And then my brother, who's 5 years older than me, he was just, like an MTV junkie. Like literally that's what was on my TV at all times. So I got to see, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Yo MTV Raps, everything that was being played on MTV.
When they used to play music.
It was just background music.
Yeah, MTV used to play music. That's what it stood for. Like,
exactly.
So now I don't know what happened. But
yeah, so like, I have early memories being, 5, 6, 7 years old, just kind of being forced to watch it and just liking all the music that I was listening to. And, cue the mid to late 90s, my brother's attention almost completely shifted to hip hop. So I would just go in his room and steal his CDs and listen to him. And it was like the perfect entry for me because, he had albums like Illmatic, he had albums like Ready to Die, Reasonable Doubt, Capital Punishment, Legal Drug Money. So like I would just go and steal his albums and listen to them over and over and over and over again. And I kind of just studied them and took myself to school. And I think, the first time like I heard someone like Big Pun or, a Jay-Z or a Nas, like it was just so clear to me that they were a level above everyone else. And that's kind of when I started to like really listen as opposed to just liking it for how it sounded or how the beats were. So once I started to understand like rhyme structure and
becoming a student of the
game, like I really became a student. And I'm just the type of person, like when I like something, I dive into it head first, and it just got to a point where I was like, all right, I want to see if I could do this, you know what I mean? And you kind of start out emulating the people you listen to, and then just after trial and error and just practice, like I started to develop my own thing.
Create your own thing.
Yeah, so that was pretty much it. It was just being more than anything like intrigued by like the technique of it and wanted to be able to do it myself. So
who was your first like favorite rapper? Like who did you like catch your attention right away?
Favorite group or rapper?
I mean, like I think honestly, like my gateway drug, the first album that I really, really fell in love with was Ready to Die. Okay. And still to this day, like that's probably my favorite rap album. You know what I mean? That was the album that I just listened to back to front to back, and from there, it was kind of like the more I studied that album, it was just a perfect gateway to stuff like Illmatic and Reasonable Doubt. And then obviously once the internet came around, which was again kind of perfect timing, like late 90s, me being like 13, 14 years old, right. I was like, all right, if I like this, what else am I gonna like? So I just had free reign to
wait on that Napster.
Exactly, like Napster, LimeWire, like that was my Friday night. Like I'd sit in my basement and download as much music as humanly possible. And that's like how I started to discover, more underground artists like Chino XL and like Killer Priest and Big L. And like, I was a huge Cannabis fan. Like, you know what I mean? Like I used to listen to Cannabis a lot.
Everybody did.
It was just a lot of things that kind of were at the right place at the right time that just molded my taste, you know what I mean? And then I just went from there.
Yeah, good taste.
Yeah, definitely good taste. Like, to somebody that never heard your music, like, how would you describe it, like, to?
Like, I'm just trying to put an updated spin on stuff that I grew up listening to. My rule of thumb is like, if a 15 or 16-year-old me wouldn't listen to it, then I'm not going to put it out. I think in an industry right now where everything is so homogenous, where literally, producers don't even have a signature sound anymore. Like everything sounds like a run-on sentence. Even the rappers that I like, you know, there's no identity to the music that's being put out. You know, I wanna have an East Coast identity to the music that I'm making and not do it in a way that's trying to recapture some kind of bygone era. Like, I'm not trying to do shit over fake primo beats and stay stuck in 95. Like, I want to bring that sound into the new age. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. But
I get what you're saying.
At the same time, you know, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I just want to draw a line in the sand and say,
more like an evolution of
like this is what I grew up listening to. This is the stuff that inspired me. You know, if I was trying to do my version of like trap music or like just try to emulate everything that's big right now, you know, it would almost be like selling out. It wouldn't be fun to me.
It wouldn't be authentic, organic.
You know, so I try to just mix up, you know, all the influences that I have. And,
right.
You know what I mean?
From when I listen to music, I get that the vibe, like it's positive, but it's not like cheesy.
Yeah.
It's like positive, a good feel, like you got a good vibe to your music, which when you listen to Tribe or like Illmatic, like
exactly.
It has, which I like that.
Daylight, all that.
It's like you just try to.
Gangstar, that's like, what I get when I listen to this music.
You're not trying to be like hard or whatever, but you know what I mean. Not saying you're soft, but it's like a good, feel good.
It's that
hip-hop.
good '90s feel. It sounds organic without sounding outdated.
You could listen to at barbecues, parties. You know what I mean? It's like a good feel. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like the hardest thing is, and honestly, it took me forever just to discover like who I am. You know what I mean? Like the hardest thing I think a lot of artists go through is just like, who do I want to be? How do I want to present myself? You know, and I had to go through so much stuff and like just that artist development process that doesn't even exist anymore. There was just so many evolutions to me getting here now. So, you know, I just always try to inject my personal experiences and, you know, try to make authentic hip hop from like an honest perspective. You know what I mean?
You're doing a good job, because I definitely, like, when I heard it, I'm like, when I heard some of your earlier stuff, I'm like, okay. Then I heard more. I was like, he's really capturing that feel of the '90s that we grew up on and love, but it still sounds like updated. You know what I mean? It still sounds fresh and new, but you still with the bars, with the beats and the hooks. And like I said, when I heard it, I got like a flashback of Daylight, Gangstar, and all that when I was listening to it, which is dope.
Definitely.
And like you said, a lot of new artists coming out from Rockaway and from everywhere, they doing the same sound. It's like they
go in the studio like, I want a song like this. Like they
go
and try to create a song that's on the radio.
Yeah, whatever's on the charts, on the billboards, or popping in the strip clubs.
Beat like that.
I want something just like that, and there's no identity. It's like a bunch of clones. But some people actually stand out that do it, because my whole thing is, if you're doing trap and that's what you really love, it's gonna show. Just try to be the best at what you do. If it's the trap lane, if it's the boom bap lane, if it's the party lane, if it's the conscious lane, positive, just be the best at what you do and it's gonna show.
Yeah, I'm not coming from a perspective of like, I dislike it, because I do like a lot of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think people hear me and then they just assume that I'm like more like I'm like this like anti-mumble rap dude. Even that's a blanket term that people use to just describe any new rap. But it's like my thing is, I miss when, you know, producers used to have their own identity, regions used to have their own identity. You know, you could listen to something and say, okay, Pharrell did that. All right, Timbaland did that. All right, Just Blaze did that. Like, it just doesn't sound like that anymore. Like, I can't, not to say there's no dope producers now, I just don't think that it's as important for some of these young kids to really, one, research the music that they're making and have like a foundation for what they're doing. Or, you know, I don't think it's important for them to feel like they have to distinguish themselves and sound different from other people. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I have this program. I could program this beat up. You know, it has the 808s and the rolling hi-hats, and I have my little shit over it, and you know, that's a dope beat. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot more that goes into it, and the barrier to entry now is so low. Whereas if you were a producer back in the day, you had to actually go buy the equipment. You had to learn how to use it. Yeah. There was a knowledge that came before, and a learning curve. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like there was a knowledge that came before that's kind of like lost. You know what I mean? So.
Well, talk about producers. I see you work with Kwame. Is he producing, or like, how did you connect with Kwame? For those who don't know, the youngins out there, Kwame, the legendary Kwame from Queens. Salute to Kwame.
Yeah. So I met Kwame just through by complete chance. You know, I went to high school at this school, St. Francis Prep in Queens, and that was the first time I ever had an audience to rap in front of. Like, everything was kind of like me rapping for my friends, my brother, me writing rhymes in my basement. But like, how good could you be when you don't have any like objective people standing on the side like that will keep it 100% honest with you? So high school was like the first time I really got to rap and like have that affirmation, like, all right, maybe I should stick with this. And my best friend was this kid, Anthony, and he was kind of like a dude that was doing everything that I wanted to be doing. He was working in studios with producers. And at that time, that was like a big step, because it wasn't like everybody had Pro Tools in their bedroom and they could just make songs on demand. Like, me just getting into a studio and recording was a feat in and of itself. So me and him got real cool.
It was a big deal back in the day. Somebody
exactly.
had equipment, like now
everybody's
like a laptop, but if you heard somebody had equipment, like, oh, word, I want to go there. Now it's just like anybody can get the software.
Yeah, so he was like the first kid that was actually doing it, and we just got real cool. And it's funny because when I walked in here, I saw Radiant, who I haven't seen in, I don't know, 18 years.
Radiant go back,
Salute the
right?
Radiant,
so
small world.
So Radiant was somebody I worked with very early on, and Kwame was somebody that was working with Anthony as well. And I don't know how they got connected, but all I know was he was working with my best friend. My best friend pretty much vouched for me and was like, you got to work with this kid. He brought me up to Kwame's apartment, which at that time was literally like smaller than like half this room, and it was up in Harlem, and his whole entire apartment was recording equipment. Like, his whole studio took up the entire space. He maybe had a small bathroom, small kitchen. Like, his mic booth was in his bedroom. Everything was studio equipment.
That work.
And yeah, man, I mean, again, and I said this to Radiant before, like, I was as unpolished, as green as I possibly could be. I didn't know anything about writing records. I could rap a little bit, but I was very new to everything. And, you know, he took a chance on me. He was kind of the first person that really gave me like that approval and saw something, I guess. And, you know, he took me under his wing and pretty much raised me as a rapper, you know what I mean? He took me through that whole artist development process. Wow. He, you know, explained the ins and outs of the music industry.
It doesn't exist no more. That artist development, that's very.
I'm super grateful for that.
Because it's like you're hot on SoundCloud. Yeah, here's a deal.
Yeah, you got a lot of follows and likes. Here's a deal real quick. 360 deal, you get jerked. But yeah, artist development is a huge thing.
Yeah, so I was lucky, man. Like, I was lucky to be able to have that experience. You know, a lot of people don't get to go through that. So yeah, I pretty much been working with him ever since. And you know, we're like family at this point. You know, he's super loyal to me, I'm super loyal to him, and we just always kept pushing, man, like through everything. We've just always been working together. And I mean, at this point, we're about to put out an album. He did like 80% of it, so. That
song that y'all did together, The Return?
Yeah.
I love how y'all did the back and forth.
Yeah.
And Kwame was spitting on that. Like, he sounded, I was like, okay, I ain't Kwame in a while. So to hear that, I was like, wow, Kwame still got it.
Well, that's the thing is, like, he could still rap. So every time, like, I put anything out, I always try to get him back on because he likes being in the background. But, you know, he stays sharp, so. And he really does have a loyal fan base. Like, people love when he puts stuff out. You know, he does little freestyles and stuff here and there, but he likes to stay behind the scenes. But, you know, he's not like one of these guys that was around in a particular era and raps the same way today that he did in 88. Yeah. So I wanted to showcase that, and you know, he's on the album as well, rapping. So
yeah, he definitely sounded good on that song. The Bobby song, who produced that? Who was the producer on
that?
That's
Kwame.
Oh, that's Kwame?
Yeah.
Another dope song.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorites. The Bobby joint.
Yeah.
That joint is dope.
Thanks, man.
Walter White, the Static killed. That's another.
How did that come about?
Yeah, how did that come about? Static Selector.
Well, Static. I met Static through my manager, who had a relationship with him. And, you know, my manager, I pretty much have two managers at this point. It's my boy Greg, who I've known since I'm a kid, and my boy Sean, and they kind of like help each other out. My boy Sean works at Brooklyn Bowl, so he kind of rubs shoulders with some industry types. And he knows Static in passing, and he's
a DJ, Sean? Is he a DJ?
He used to back in the day.
He used to DJ? He sound familiar.
Yeah, but he does he does like day-to-day management and stuff.
All right. Continue. Go ahead.
So he had been, telling Static about me just relentlessly, and eventually Static was like, all right, bring him to the studio. So I got in the studio, and Static must have played 200 beats, like back to back to back to back to back, and like every last one of them was dope. So finally I had to just like narrow it down to like 5 or 6, Walter White being one of them. I think I came back in like 2 days with that written, but it didn't have a hook on it yet. And I knew that I wanted him to scratch on it because at that point I hadn't made a straight up like New York hip hop record with some scratches on it.
Right.
And it was just dope because I got to sit with him in the studio and run ideas back and forth about what I wanted him to cut. He came to me with the Method Man sample, and then I wanted him to chop up the RZA sample. So
Yeah, he's perfect for that.
yeah, so he did it in like, I don't know, 5 minutes. Like once we were able to identify what we wanted to do, we did it in like 5 minutes. So, from there, me and him have a good relationship, and he's got another song on the album, and hopefully we get to do some more stuff in the future because he's one of my favorite dudes doing it.
All right. The Walter White. You said you wrote the lyrics, the verses in 2 days.
Nah,
that last verse is crazy.
Nah, I wrote that in. I basically took it home, and I wrote that in 1 day. And then I came back and I recorded it with him. So I had the reference that I sent to him, but it was kind of bare. Like it didn't have the hook on it.
You went in on that last verse.
Thanks, man.
That last verse on that Walter White.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you definitely went in.
Appreciate it.
And then the latest joint you dropped was Flow Like This. Was that the?
Flow Like This is gonna be for another project that I'm working on with
Daru
a
Jones?
drummer named Daru Jones.
So that was him on the drums.
That was him on the drums.
Dope.
Yeah.
That joint is dope.
Yeah,
That
so
joint is dope.
so Daru he's like one of the dopest working, just musicians / drummers like out. I mean, he's literally traveling all the time, doing shows everywhere. Like he works with Jack White, and he just worked on Gloria Gaynor's album, like, and then he does random hip hop shit. So it's like his resume is ridiculous. And I did a show with him at this spot, the Blue Note. Down on McDougal, and he liked what I was doing and wanted to do a project with me. So we got a project that we're working on, and it's a EP / like documentary because we filmed everything. So I wanted to do something with him where it was just literally him playing the drums and me rhyming, and everything just flows seamlessly into each other. So that's a separate project. But it's gonna be dope, man. We're getting everything mixed and mastered right now, so be on the lookout for that.
Definitely dope. Who did the Let Me Breathe beat? Who was
That's
the producer?
Kwame.
Kwame again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should produce a lot of joints back in the day.
Yeah, they said, yeah.
His resume is dope, man. I mean, he's another one. Like he does a lot of. He did Vivian Green's last 2 albums. He's done shit with like Method Man, Talib Kweli, and then he'll go and do like a Jesse McCartney or like Pussycat Dolls record. You know what I mean? So
versatile.
His resume is cross genres. So he's definitely dope.
Wide range. So when you go to the studio, like every MC or most artists got like a certain survival kit they need when they go to the studio. What's yours? Like tea, weed, Hennessy, like what's you need when you go in and start
It depends.
recording?
Like if I'm at see, he doesn't drink or smoke. So that stuff, when I'm working with him directly, like I'm not really like leaning on like, smoking weed or any shit like that. Honestly, the only substance that gets abused is like Red Bull. You know what I mean? Like it's just constant like caffeine, like trying to keep the energy up. But like when I'm at home, I'll hit the G pen or whatever, but I try not to make that a crutch. Like I need this to be creative, you know what I mean? I try to be able to create when I'm sober as well, because I know there's a lot of people that they can't write or have their facilities at hand unless they're like drinking or smoking.
Yeah, they need that.
I try to be able to create if I don't have any of that stuff around me, but yeah, I mean it's different vibes for different studios. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I'm at my crib and I don't have these time constraints. Sometimes I'll smoke, but it's really just about putting myself in a zone. And
so you do most of your writing at home or in the studio when you get to the lab?
I do both. I do both. Sometimes like if I'm working with Kwame, like a lot of times we try to make the creative process like as organic as it possibly can be. A lot of stuff will just be me and him sitting down and just having like a long drawn out conversation that will eventually become a record. You know what I mean? And then I'll write something. Maybe I'll get half the song done. I'll come back and I'll lay it down. I like writing in the studio because I like to, you know, once you catch that like vibe or that creative energy, I like to play off that. You know, at home I try to write as much as possible. You know what I mean? Like literally just go in my studio, and I feel like if I sit down and I cue the beat up and I put the headphones on, that's like half the battle. You know what I mean? And then I'll see if the vibe is right and I could get anything out. I never try to force it. If it's not working, I'll come back to it. So, you know, I have a couple methods to how everything works out, but it's really like song by song. You know what I mean?
All right. What dream collab do? Like, if you could collab with anybody in the industry, like
Producer
anybody,
or rapper?
Artist. We go artist first.
Do
And
an
then
artist and a producer.
Yeah. Like any artist, any group. If you could have that one, they give you one pick. Anybody in the industry, who would it be?
It's hard to say one.
Well, give us two. I'll give you two.
If it was producers, definitely Rick Rubin.
Legend.
Or I mean, Premier or Dre. You know what I mean? Like that would just be a dream come true. Rappers.
Artist-wise, yeah.
I mean, Black Thought's my favorite rapper. So, like somebody like him, Method Man. Love to work with Method Man.
I think most MCs are scared to get in a booth with Black Thought.
Nah,
That's why he don't got a lot of features and a lot of collabs. I think they.
You know what? I'd happily get destroyed by Black Thought.
You know, happily accept that, right?
But you know, it's just a major pause on that. I'm sorry. But that's expected.
Yeah. Well, Black Thought, Method Man.
Edit that out.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's one of my favorite MCs. Meth would be up there. Obviously, a Jay or a Nas. You know what I mean? But it's like I want to at least feel like I'm challenging myself. You know what I mean? So if that's the end result, so be it. But it's like
I respect that. Most cats,
you know
they don't want to be challenged. You know what I mean? In the booth. But that's what's up, man. But so the next project that you got on its way, what's the name of the
So the album's called Summer Classics. So
Summer Classics.
Yeah,
and that's dropping when?
That's dropping. The tentative date is July 26th.
Oh, okay.
You know, so that's gonna be the end of the month. But yeah, man, I'm just super excited. I've been working on it so long. It's hard to even believe that it's like at the end, but you know, everything's just getting the finishing touches put on it. So, you know, we were waiting on a couple features and everything's out of the way now. So, you know, we're editing the video for this joint I got with Fame called Hook Drop. Shout out to Fame from MOP. Yeah, man, I'm just super excited. You know what I mean?
Like I said, July 26th. So by the time we probably drop this episode, it'll probably be past July, but so we're gonna definitely have to have him up again after we all listen to it. That's what we do on this show a lot. We break down albums and everything. So we would love to dissect the album and everything.
Let me ask you, since we're Rockaway people, the Summer Classics name, is that like inspired by the tournament at 129?
Yeah. So like you know, it's funny because the name, originally I was gonna name the album Hometown. Okay. And then I was trying to come up with an idea for merchandise to sell. And you know, being that I'm from Rockaway Beach, the Summer Classics basketball tournament is so much wrapped into the community that I grew up in.
It's an event,
you know, I was like, damn, it'd be dope to flip the, you know, like the CYO tees that they had. And then I was talking to my boy Sean, who was helping me get the tees made. I was like, you know what, that's a dope name for an album, because at the same time, I feel like every rapper wants to have those songs that are classic songs that play through the summertime. And I really feel like top to bottom, I'm giving people, you know, bangers, like shit that they could put, you know, they could take the roof off or the top down and play it. And it's a summertime album. It has that energy, you know what I mean? And that it just kind of captured the whole feeling for what I was trying to go for. So, you know, the best ideas just pop into your head. So it ties into the neighborhood, and it ties into what I'm going for with the album as well. So
you hand out shirts during the tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
Dope. So we definitely looking forward to that, because after hearing the singles and everything, I already know that you're expecting some heat. You know what I mean? And repping Rockaway, so it's always a good thing. But so Any shows you got coming up you want to let know before we wrap this up? Like, I gotta see a live show.
We're definitely planning the album release party right now. So that'll be in August. I have a show at Brooklyn Bowl opening up for this dude Lyrics Born in October, and there's a couple other things in the works, but the ink's not dry on it yet, so I don't really want to say anything until it's done.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely in the near future. You know, we're gonna have a bunch of shows. So the recent one, or the one that's coming up more recently, is gonna be the album release party. So, you know, I'll put all the details and stuff out for that when the album drops.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
I got one thing that's your breakfast bar series.
Yeah.
Shit is fire. How'd you come up with that idea? Or, you know, explain to them what the breakfast bars are.
Well, the breakfast bar series was just like, I've had official songs out and released since like 2007, but there was definitely like a period where I pretty much became the mad rapper, and I was like making music, but I wasn't putting anything out, and it was just like this dark period where I think a lot of artists, especially rappers, get jaded, and they're kind of at a crossroads where it's like, do I keep doing this? Like, is this working? You know what I mean? And I was definitely in that period for a long time, and it took me a minute to really get to a point where it's like, all right, like I really want to put another album out again. I want to, you know, really focus on this music thing full time. And it just took me a minute to have the clarity to do that. And, you know, everything changed during that time period. It wasn't like I could just come back out and say, all right, I'm putting out new music again. I pretty much had to start from square one and build awareness for myself and let people know that I was putting music out again. Oh, okay. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start dropping a video or a song every week, every Monday morning for the next year. And that's kind of how the Breakfast Bars thing came into effect. You know, I would just, every Monday, you know, just, I would record the song middle of the week. My brother would shoot the video for me on a weekend. I'd edit it and I put it out on Monday. And I did that for a year straight, and it started to bring me results. Like, I was starting to get more attention off of doing that than I had ever gotten before. And right. I mean, everything was pretty much using things that I had at my disposal. Like, you know, I had a little Canon camera. Sometimes I would shoot shit on my phone, but it's amazing what you can do with just a little, you know, I didn't really need anything. You know what I mean? Like, right. I could shoot a video on my phone, edit it up, put it out on Instagram, and then you have thousands of people watching it. You know what I mean? So it was extremely helpful in making people aware of me that never heard of me, getting people that knew that I rap but thought I stopped back into what I was doing, and just kind of build up anticipation for what I'm about to put out. And like, honestly, I don't even plan on stopping, you know, the Breakfast Bar series. I think it's done more good for me than just about anything. Absolutely. You know, I think we just live in a time where you put something out on Monday, people forget about it on Tuesday. So it's just my way of feeding the beast and kind of adapting to the way shit is now.
Yeah, people got short attention spans.
Yeah,
that's
like
problem.
Crazy. So
crazy. But that's what it is. So let the people know where they can find you. Give them your whole your social media platforms.
Yeah, so it's pretty much at Bobby J from Rockaway on every platform. You know, Facebook.com/Bobby J from Rockaway, Instagram Bobby J from Rockaway, all streaming Bobby J from Rockaway. My Twitter is Bobby J Rockaway, BobbyJFromRockaway.com. So everything is the same. You know, if you look it up, you'll find me.
Bobby J Rockaway. All right. So anything else you want to ask or say before we wrap this up?
Summer Classics.
Yeah,
Summer Classics. I'm looking forward. I ain't gonna lie. I'm looking forward to this.
June 26th. Look out for the video with Little Fame from MOP. The single's called Hook Drop. Also produced by Kwame. You know, shout out to all the artists and producers that contributed to the album. You know, obviously Static's on the album, Jake One's on the album. I got Vivian Green on the album. Killer Priest is on the album. Wow. So, you know, I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm happy to be at a point where I could even release something and people listen to it. So whatever it doesn't really matter. It's to me, this is a huge accomplishment, you know, in itself. You know what I mean? So appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, we happy to hear music like this. Yeah. We happy to hear this. You know what I mean? Thanks for coming up. Thanks for showing love. Yeah, definitely got to come back again once the project drops. We got to have a part 2 to this. Rockaway, y'all already know, chopping up hip hop. How we always say, stay fit and keep it hip hop. Chop, chop. Peace. Saturday Night Live shit.
Yeah, like the Saturday. So next time, we'll do
Like Marvel.
No, I wouldn't.